Welcome to 2016 Presidential Candidate Interviews. Today I am interviewing Scott Cole. He's running as a Republican. Hello and welcome to the interview, Scott.
Thank you very much.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Glad to be a part of this.
Well, it's good to have you participating. Let's give the listeners an opportunity to get to know you. Can you describe your family?
Yes. I grew up outside of Philadelphia. I went to college in upstate New York, lived in upstate New York for a while. My father was a police chief in South Jersey. My mom was a nurse. My dad and mom live in New York still. They retired up there. I got married to a wonderful woman named Tammy. We live in North Carolina now because I got a job teaching down here. I was a teacher in New York for a while, first at a public school and then at a private school for troubled youth. And now I live in Greenville, North Carolina, home to East Carolina University, but I work in nearby Kinston at an alternative high school where I teach history and government.
Describe your employment and work experience.
Oh, boy. Out of college, I was a sports reporter for a little bit. Then I went back to school to be a teacher. I went to college for communications with a minor in history. But after 9/11, I wanted to give back to the country. And I'm kind of too clumsy to go into the military. You know, I'm kind of tall and tend to stick out, and I'm, not, the physical specimen they're looking for. So I wanted to help out in some other way. So I decided to go back to school and become a teacher, and I'm in my 10th year teaching now. I still do a little sports reporting on the side. I've also worked in county government. When we lived in Binghamton, New York, I was very active on the political scene, the campaign manager for one campaign, worked on several other campaigns, everything from, town council to helping Representative Hanna collect signatures and get elected down in the Binghamton area. So I've worked very active in politics there. And now, like I said, I'm just working as a history teacher down here in North Carolina.
What are your hobbies and interests?
Very big into, I really love watching movies. My wife and I, have a very active Netflix account. I like reading. Very much into my Philadelphia team sports. I love my Phillies, Eagles, and Flyers, even though the Phillies are not very good. The Eagles are kind of questionable at the moment. I'm still a diehard fan of them. That's pretty much my hobbies there. I love to read.
Do you have any favorite restaurants to eat out?
Oh, yeah. It's, growing up outside of Philly and then living in New York, there were a ton of Italian restaurants, the little mom-and-pop places that were just so awesome to eat at. And everyone, had some specialty that was a little bit better than everybody else. This one it was the spaghetti, that one is the ravioli, this one is the lasagna or the chicken parm. Moving down to where we are in North Carolina, you don't have, like, the mom-and-pop Italian places, but there are some great barbecue places. There are some wonderful Mexican restaurants in the area. I was surprised that there's a lot of Mexican restaurants here in North Carolina. But, man, is it good. I've gained probably a good 20 pounds since moving down here 3 years ago. Because the southern food here is really good. But still, I got to go with my Philly cheesesteak.
Okay. Do you have a favorite fast food joint for when you're on the go?
Probably Burger King or Wendy's.
Right. Favorite junk food?
Favorite junk food? Oh, man, M&M's. Man, there's a special weakness out there for M&M's and me.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Favorite TV shows and movies?
My favorite movie is The Blues Brothers. Great music, good comedy, great scenes. I love the Marvel movies that they've been cranking out. I'm a big Star Wars fan, but I also love, classic movies like The Godfather, Ben-Hur. TV shows, big fan of The Simpsons, although I'm more of a fan of what it used to be than what it is now. I just think after, 25, 26 years. It's they've run out of ideas at this point. Loved 24 when that was on. Big fan of The Walking Dead. Those are probably my favorite shows.
Do you have any pets?
Yes, we have 2 dogs. They're both 6 years old. One is a Maltese. Her name is Sophie. And we have a Bichon Shih Tzu mix named Fluffernutter.
Okay. And the final icebreaker question. Name a song that you consider a life anthem, a motto, something that represents who you are.
Ooh, that's a good question. I would have to say, I love all sorts of different music. My dad kind of raised me on oldies music. And then, growing up in the 90s, I was, kind of into the grunge music scene, and now I'm still kind of into the modern rock, but also listen to oldies and Christian music too. But I would have to say, probably my go-to song is a song by a Danish band actually called Volbeat. The song is called A Warrior's Call. It's just a good kind of pump you up anthem. My Flyers used it a few years ago as their introductory song. That's very fast-paced, just get your heart going and get you all pumped up and excited.
All right, now into the actual questions that probably matter more, hopefully. Why are you running for president?
Well, I'm not going to delude myself. I know that the chances of me getting the nomination are extremely slim. But that's not the point. The point is I want to bring some issues that are not being talked about to the political forefront. And I announced last year after I turned 35, and I'm running it solely on Facebook. And it's also kind of a social experiment. I teach a government class, and I want to see how far can somebody go just along with social media. And my inspiration for this was seeing the revolutions that you saw in the Middle East a few years ago that were mainly Facebook and Twitter and YouTube oriented. How far can that happen here? But the other cause of it is it seems like after every presidential election is just concluded, the mainstream media, the 24-hour networks especially, are already trying to line up who's going to run in 4 years from now.
Right.
And you get these people, and it's all driven by money. And, okay, Hillary and Bernie Sanders are very polar opposites, but a lot of the Republican candidates, there's a lot of similarities between them. A lot of them are very close to each other, politically speaking, what they stand for and all that. It comes down to, after that, mostly personality. And I think we need to change the system up. This country is built, by the people, for the people. I mean, the Constitution starts, we the people. And why does it have to be somebody famous? Why can't it be one of us? The last few presidents we have not been very stellar. They've been average at best. I think that there's a lot of things that we need changing. The two things I'm really focusing on more than anything else, I think we need campaign finance reform. I would like to see campaigns being funded by the public tax dollars. And the reason is I think the corporations, special interest PACs, when they get involved, politicians become beholden to them. And I saw this running campaigns on the local level, that if I donate to your campaign, then there's something expected back in return. Now, normally this is considered a bribe, but when it's a campaign, that's okay. I don't think that's right. And, when you come down to primary season, it's really whoever has the most dollars ends up winning the election. And, corporations and rich people shouldn't, and unions and all that stuff, they shouldn't be allowed to just hijack the elections and buy it out. There's a lot of good people out there who could run who don't have the funds and are tossed aside because they can't get their name out there as much. The other thing, I would love to see term limits for people in Congress. I don't think Congress should be a place where you sit for 30, 40 years collecting a six-figure salary and trying to say, I understand what you live like. none of those people know what the common people like. They're all millionaires. When was the last time they went to the supermarket? When was the last time they went with their family to see a movie? They don't live like us. They don't know what it's like to be us. And I think because of that, they're out of touch. The Congress should not be a retirement home. It should not be a place where you're there for 30, 40 years, especially when you're not doing anything. And that's a big problem that we have in this country is what's Congress's approval rating? Somewhere between 10 and 15% usually. But the retention rate in Congress, if you're an incumbent and you run again, you're getting 90% of those people coming back. And usually the 10% who are losing have only been there a term or two. Once you're in, as long as you want it, you pretty much have it. But then we complain that nothing's happening in Congress, that they're not passing laws, that it's all gridlocked, and every year we have a budget battle. And if it's not working, then why do we keep voting the same people in? We need to change that.
Okay. Next question. What abilities do you bring to the office of president?
Most of the fact that I'm honest and I can't be bought. I have not taken a single campaign dollar, and I refuse to do so. That's why my whole campaign is being run off of Facebook. Plus, unlike most of the candidates, I know I don't have an answer to every problem. I know I don't have a solution to fix everything. And there's some issues that you can't just do in a 30-second soundbite that'll look good on the news. You have to look at multi-sides of it. Like with healthcare issues, for example, there's no easy solution for that. The best way to do it is to work with experts, work with people who understand the laws and economics of everything, and try to find a solution that doesn't benefit just one group of people, but does the most good for the most amount of people. And I think that my honesty and my integrity and willing to work with both sides of the political fence, I think that's what I bring most to the office.
Are there any presidents you have a positive opinion of who have aspects of their presidency you would want to emulate?
Absolutely. I love how Abraham Lincoln never lost faith in himself and in the country. He probably was president at the worst possible time, and yet he was bound and determined to do the right thing, no matter what. And, he had some dark days and he had some glorious days, but he never wavered from his belief that everything's going to work out and, just give it time. I also really admire Teddy Roosevelt. He didn't care what anybody thought. If there was something that he wanted to get done and he felt strongly about, he was going to do his best to get it done. And he didn't care if it was a Republican idea or a Democratic idea. He was going to do it. And he took his case to the people, and the people loved him for it. I'd say the other one, and this is this is kind of out there, is James Polk. I know that's really reaching here for a lot of people, but, again, I'm a history teacher. He came into office, and he says, there were 4 things he was going to work on. He was going to get Texas into the country. He was going to get Oregon into the country. He was going to lower tariffs, and he was going to work on, internal improvements. And he did it. Now, I'm not questioning the morality of the Mexican War or anything like that. That's a different discussion for a different time. But he's probably the only candidate who said, this is my 4-part plan, this is what I hope to accomplish as president, and then once I'm done my 4 years, I'm out. He kept his promise. You don't see a whole lot of them doing that anymore. So like I said, I kind of admire that. He stuck to his guns. He only served the 4 years, and he did everything he said, this is what I want to do, and he did it.
Are there any presidents you have a less than favorable opinion of who have aspects of their presidencies you would not want to emulate?
I don't want to necessarily trash anybody, but I would say looking at the last 3 presidents, Clinton, Bush, and Obama, I think we've seen presidencies that, like I said before, they've been less than stellar. And I think that's because all 3 presidents have told the American people what they wanted to hear at times. And I don't think that all 3 of them have been fully honest. I think that we are becoming more and more partisan, and I think all three presidents, with the help from Congress, too, I'm not going to blame it all on the president. You've seen a lot of gridlock now for about 20 years or so now, and enough's enough. But I don't want to go too hard on any president, because I think what a lot of people don't realize is that the president can't do it all by himself. You know, we call him the leader of the free world, but there's really a whole lot that the president can't do. And I think that's been probably the biggest failure of Obama's presidency, is he came into office with such high expectations for him, you know, that he can snap his fingers and the economy is going to get fixed, and wave a wand and everybody's got jobs, and it hasn't happened that way. And I think a lot of people were very frustrated that didn't happen, but I don't think people understand how the office works. It's a very tough job. I mean, you know, I saw Obama the other day on 60 Minutes, and, you know, I was like, man, he went gray. You know, 7 years ago, he looked really young, and then I was like, well, Clinton looked young when he first got in. Look at him now. George Bush was young when he first got in. Look at him now. I mean, those jobs draining those guys. And they don't understand how, I don't think people understand that. Look at Lyndon Johnson's presidency, for example. He tried so hard to end poverty with his Great Society program, and it was a noble idea that he tried to do. But on the other side of it, you got Vietnam. Richard Nixon had some great foreign policy things, but then you got Watergate. And, you know, no president is perfect. Every president's going to have a success or failure. It's how you balance it out. And I think with the presidents who've had the rougher presidencies, I think you have to maintain the good of the country, try to keep us strong in the world, but not look ridiculous doing it. And you gotta stay true to your integrity. And when you lose the integrity and you try to force things your way, you know, it doesn't work out for you.
Are there any functions of government you would like to decrease or abolish, and why?
Yes, it's how do I put it? I think Obamacare needs to be retooled. It's not that I think it's bad. I think finding people who can't afford health care and kind of bullying them into buying health care that they might not be able to afford is a bad way to go. When I was putting myself through grad school, I was making, you know, $8-something an hour, and I could not afford health care. Of course, during that time, I also broke my arm and got mono. I haven't been sick or injured, you know, before or since when I had the health insurance, but when I was out of health insurance, you know, of course, then I get hurt and sick. And I know how rough that can be. But I don't think we have the right to punish people who can't make that choice. For me at that time, it's like, well, do I have health insurance or do I eat? And for me, eating was more important. I don't think Obamacare went as far as some people wanted it to go, and I think there are ways to make it work. One thing I'd like to see is for people to have options with their health insurance, kind of like how people have options on car insurance. Okay, I don't need glasses, so for this year, I don't want to have to pay for eyeglass coverage. You know, I think there are certain options and features I would like to select and not select, and then, you know, every year I can kind of, you know, add more or take more off depending on what my needs are. I think that would probably be better. I also would like to see the government create a health insurance corporation that's for profit, kind of like the post office. I know that's kind of a bad example since the post office is losing money. But to give the other health insurance companies some competition. You know, I can, you know, buy Blue Cross and Blue Shield. I can buy this plan, or I could buy the government plan, which is a lot cheaper. All right, well, Blue Cross Blue Shield, if you want me to use your business, but you want me to pay that same rate, then offer me something else. So I think that could be a good revenue generator for the government as well. I'd also like to retool the Veterans Administration. There's no reason why in 2015 that office should not be all digital. And I think it's a shame that our veterans who we sent over to Iraq and Afghanistan and other places are coming back wounded, injured, some of them having mental scars and issues because of what they experienced over there. And they got to wait 2-3 years before they see doctors, or they have to prove that, your injuries are related to what happened over there. I think that's atrocious, and we've let them down. I think it's also a crime that guys are coming back from the war and can't find a job. That should be the first thing we do, is take care of the people who offered their lives up for us. You want out of the military? Fine. We'll get you a job. We'll find you a job. That's our first priority, and then we're going to give you all the health care you need. I think the way the VA does their health right now is a joke. I'd give them all like a government credit card. That's the way I look at it. You get a gold card, you go to the doctor, you go to the hospital, and you say, Uncle Sam takes care of this, and you let them swipe it, and that's it. That's it. You don't have to have all these hospitals with all these forms to fill out and have those forms filled out by some bureaucrat and examined by another bureaucrat and sent up to another bureaucrat to get looked at and then approved. Your leg's bothering you because you had shrapnel from a mine you stepped on. All right, you go to the nearest hospital, you go to the doctor you trust, you give them the card, Uncle Sam will pay for it. I think those are the two things I work on probably the most.
All right. Are there any areas of government you think that need to be increased? Is there anything that doesn't exist that should exist?
I never agreed with the fact that we scaled back NASA so much. Our space program created a lot of jobs for a lot of people all across the country. Our space program made numerous discoveries, and we don't know what more discoveries it could make both on here and out, outside on the moon and Mars, wherever we're going. I think the future of mankind is out there, and we should explore it and not be afraid to do it and see what happens. The other thing I would say is, while I'm not necessarily a big pro-war guy, I am concerned with a lot of the military cutbacks over the last few years, especially when you have people like Vladimir Putin kind of thumbing his nose at us, being very aggressive to his neighbors, and being very arrogant towards us. When you're talking about Iran still probably developing nuclear weapons, when you're looking at North Korea threatening the peace all over that area of the world, I don't think this is the time to scale back. Maybe we don't need to have enough weapons to blow up the world 4 or 5 times, like they said when I was growing up. But we should at least maintain a force that, might make some other countries think twice about messing with us. We should never be second best. We should always stay at least a step or two ahead of everybody else. That way we don't get caught with our pants down. We don't get hit with terrorist attacks here. And that we can also defend and protect our friends overseas as well.
All right. Describe your approach, your stance, how you would handle taxes and taxation.
Taxes are a necessary evil. Nobody wants to pay them, but you want the services that come along with paying them. It's a fact of life. And they're never going to be fair. They're never going to be as fair as you want them to be. Somebody's always going to be upset with how they're done. I think we need to revise the whole tax system. I think there should be a national sales tax, nothing high, maybe like 1 or 2% on everything but food. I think that would be a good revenue generator that everybody would pay for. And I think we need to somehow look at the tax system, whether it's with a flat tax, whether it's a graduated income tax. Yes, the wealthy should pay their fair share, whatever that means. But I think a lot of it is eliminating a lot of the tax loopholes that they get around. I think if you eliminate that, you'll get a lot of your revenue right there without really having to raise rates. the problem is that the poor people don't pay a lot of taxes, and the rich people have all the loopholes, so all the taxes really fall to the middle class to pay the burden of. The other thing is there needs to be some sort of corporate income tax. I think it's atrocious that General Electric, the world's largest corporation, paid nothing in taxes. And, you know, I paid more than they did in taxes. We all pay more in taxes. You know, you buy a candy bar, what you paid in tax, you just paid more than GE did all last year, which is kind of disgusting. I don't want to tax companies to the point where they start moving overseas, because that doesn't help anybody out. But there should be some sort of accountability there that they can contribute something to.
Next topic. Describe your stance and how you would handle the abortion pro-choice issue.
Yeah, that's what I don't want to touch. And the reason is, no matter what you say, you've already angered 50% of the people. Honestly, I don't think that issue is going to go away. I don't think it's ever going to change. You may have some minor tweaks to it, like no partial term abortion or, you know, third-term abortions or anything like that. But you also can't ban it because you're always going to come back to, well, what if it's, you know, for the life of the mother? What if it's the baby's going to be born with some serious health issues and probably would not survive? What if it's rape? What if it's incest? What if the girl who's pregnant is, like, you know, 12 years old? You're always going to have those gray issues pop up. And this is what I was mentioning earlier about, you know, some issues being so multifaceted that you can't just say yes or no. And even though I'm pro-life, the Supreme Court, you know, ruled Roe versus Wade, and I don't see how you're going to be able to effectively ban it all. And that's, I think, just the reality of it. You can pass a few laws to make it harder or more difficult, but I don't think you'll ever get rid of it at this point.
Next question is about the military. What role should our military play in the world? And before you answer, there's about 17 more minutes left in this interview, and we have quite a few questions to get through, so just so you're aware.
Yeah, not a problem. I believe our military should always be at readiness to protect ourselves and our allies overseas. I think that we should do what we can to make sure that they have the best equipment, both to protect themselves and also to defeat whatever enemy it is that they have to face off against. I have no problem in doing research and development into finding new technologies that might be better, maybe even to the point where we can use better non-lethal techniques against those people that we're fighting, or do less damage to casualties so that civilians don't get caught in the crossfire. We don't necessarily have to have a big, giant war machine like we did during World War II, but we should, like I said, when you have people out there like Putin, like the North Koreans, you need to have some backbone to stand up to. You need to have some sort of strength to stand behind so that they know that you mean business. And I really, if anything, I fault Obama for more than anything else. We did nothing when Putin went into Ukraine. We stood by and watched. We did nothing when Assad was blowing up people in Syria, and then ISIS started going all over the place, and now Russia's involved in Syria. And we're standing by and watching. There could be conflicts between Russia and Turkey over issues there. Are we going to stand by our ally? I don't think Putin respects the United States at all right now, and I think that's creating a very dangerous situation. And not that we need to saber rattle or, you know, just jump right into war, but when you have international bullies like that, sometimes the only thing they respect is you being a little tough too.
How would you handle immigration and border security?
That's a hot topic right now. Despite what Mr. Trump thinks, you just can't pick all the illegals up and ship them back. It would take way too much time, cost untold millions of dollars to do it. And you would probably start a mini civil war in this country if you tried. I think the best thing to do is, it wouldn't be an outright amnesty, but I'd say, hey, you got between now and 18 months to, if you're here illegally, between now and 18 months, you need to register with the government, pay a small fine, nothing that would really damage the family, like maybe $500 or something, not enough to cripple, but enough to be like, yeah, you messed up. And we'll put you on a path to citizenship. That way you don't have to worry about anything. You can stop looking over your shoulders. We'll take care of you because you're already here. But after that 18 months, if you haven't done that, we're going to look at finding you and arresting you. As for new immigrants coming in, America has always been the land of opportunity. I am the great-grandson of Hungarian immigrants coming over from Hungary. A lot of people in my hometown were, descended from people from Romania, Poland, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, working in the steel mill right outside of Trenton, New Jersey. And you go anywhere in the Northeast and the Midwest, you're going to find the same story. We are a nation of immigrants. I want to be closing down the borders or closing down quotas. I'd be raising them. If you want to come here, come here. Make something of yourself. We have jobs, and the more people come here, we'll have more jobs available because those people are going to need services, and they'll need to go to school and see doctors and eat at restaurants and all that stuff, get clothing. But if they're coming here, we need to do more stringent background checks, and I think that there's ways to do that are very effective. I don't know if we need to open up immigration checkpoints like Ellis Island, sort of processing centers like we had before, but I think that there are ways that we can better process people coming into this country, put them on the path to citizenship. And the thing that we have to remember is there's a reason they're coming here and not going to Russia or China or India. They're coming here because of everything this country stands for.
How do you perceive the issues of race and discrimination in our country?
You'd be a fool to say that there aren't issues, and there's always going to be some issues no matter what. But I do think that the media has caused a lot of problems over the last few years covering some events, and I think they've done it for ratings. They try to pump up events and make them worse than they are, and it gets emotion stirred up and then causes problems elsewhere. A good example of this, any time that there was a shooting between an officer and a black man, there was always racism alleged. Like, that's why they shot him, because the cop was racist. And because of that, there are riots and protests and all this sort of stuff. But when you had an actual racist shoot people in a church in Charleston, you didn't see the protests. You didn't see the riots in Charleston. You didn't see that. But where racism has been alleged, you have. I think we focus so much on why we're different that we need to focus on why we're the same. We need to realize Dr. King's dream. And I do think his dream is still a reality. I think we are so obsessed with labeling what we are. Facebook has something like 17 different labels for you to identify yourself. I'm a man, I'm a woman, I'm a man who thinks I'm a woman, I'm gay, I'm gay but not gay, I'm pansexual, trisexual, bisexual. I mean, there's all sorts of different labels. Why do we have to keep breaking us down more and more? What happened to, we're Americans. I teach in a minority-heavy school. I live in a neighborhood that's pretty evenly divided between, everybody. Everybody gets along, and I think the vast majority of people, one-on-one, get along, and we need to remember that. It's just a few fanatics. It's a few bad eggs that make it all bad for everybody else. There are still issues that need to be ironed out, no doubt. You're not going to erase, hundreds of years of prejudice and discrimination. overnight. But I think, and I think this is where the media forgets things, I think we are better now with my generation. I'm 36 right now. I think it's better for my generation than it was for my parents. But I also think it was better for my parents than it was for my grandparents. And I think our children or grandchildren, it's going to be even better for them.
All right, we're coming up on 10 minutes left. Let's just move to the part of the interview that'll kind of open up everything. Are there any other issues you would like to discuss? Anything in the kitchen sink that you kind of want to toss out there and talk about?
Really, I would just encourage the American people to get more active. Keep your political leaders, whether it's your mayor, your school board officials, your governor, senator, up to the president. Keep them more accountable. A lot of people don't vote because they think that their vote doesn't count or they don't care. Well, that's the politician's best friend, because if you're not voting for you may not be voting for me, but you're also not voting for my opponent, which means I still win. Don't vote strictly party lines. Find the best candidate. Look beyond the labels of conservative and liberal and find the person that you think is going to do the job the best. Look for the person that's going to be the most honest. And we've fallen away from a lot of that. Look at how these silly debates are being run. The next morning it's who had the best zinger. I'm not electing a comedian. I'm not electing somebody who has the best info to somebody else. That, to me, is not a winner. I want somebody who, in a crisis, they're going to have a cool head and they're going to be able to solve the problem. I want somebody who, when they stand up and give a speech, I'm going to be like, yeah, I'm proud for that guy to be representing me. I feel honored that that guy's leading me. And I would love to see somebody like that at some point. Haven't had a president like that I could say that for. I mean, I was too young for Reagan. He was president when I was a kid, but, I'm 6 years old. I would be, amazed by anybody if they say that's the president. I really question if we're ever going to have a great president again. Are we going to have a Reagan, an FDR, or a Teddy Roosevelt, a Lincoln, a Kennedy, a Washington? I don't know. We're electing people solely on these frivolous, stupid reasons. I'm not voting for that guy. That guy is boring. Well, so what if they're boring? The president's not supposed to be an entertainer. But Al Gore was boring. John Kerry was boring and rich. John McCain was too old. Mitt Romney was too rich and boring. Where does boring matter? But that's what we've become. We're looking on all these issues that don't matter. You're not going to see a fat guy president. We haven't had a president since Taft who was overweight or had a facial hair. We haven't had a president since Johnson who was balding.
Pretty much,
because we're looking at these superficial issues.
Well, there was Nixon. He was kind of...
Yeah.
And Jerry Ford. I think they kicked out Jerry Ford because they wanted a bald guy. Or they kicked out Nixon because they wanted a bald guy in there.
Yeah.
So, no.
I look at Bernie Sanders, and I don't agree with a lot of his politics, but I give the guy credit. He's standing up for what he thinks. Mm-hmm. It's refreshing. Like I said, I don't agree with a good amount of what he says, or at least the solutions to the problems. But I give the guy credit. He don't care if people like it or not. He's going to say what he believes in. And I think that's also why, to some degree, people are liking what Trump and Ben Carson, who are not career politicians, are saying, too. The system needs fixing, and we, the people, have to remember that this is our country. We need to make it work for ourselves and not rely on somebody else to do it for us. We have to be the authors of that.
All right, in 2 minutes or less, tell us why we should vote for you, kind of your closing remarks.
Well, just like I said at the beginning, I'm honest. I know I'm not perfect, but I'll find the best sort of people to work with and help me out. I'm not going to say stuff just to get elected. I'm not going to promise the world and deliver nothing. I'm only going to promise that I will do my best to do my duty to this country, and God willing, if He's on my side, try to deliver the best. You know, and then that's really what it is. I'm not selling a plan. I'm selling me, and I'm somebody that will not steer you wrong.
All right. Thank you for participating in the interview. Thanks again to my listeners for listening. Be sure to check back in the future for more interviews. Have a good day, and remember to keep involved.